Hi Sajid, thank you for joining us today. With me, I have my colleague Aayushi, who is from British Columbia. To start with, we are absolutely thrilled to have Sajid join us today to share his expert views on job search and career development topics, which are one of the central things for Career LinkPod. I have been connected with Sajid for some time and have also attended few of the virtual sessions which he has conducted. He regularly shares his views and also insights in these kind of areas where it's helpful for the new people who are looking into jump into some career or maybe job search. I really thank you for sparing your valuable time for us, Sajid. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Subin and Aayushi, for welcoming me to this platform. When Subin reached out to me, I felt that this is something, this is a topic very close to my heart. And then if it reaches a wider audience, then why not join it? So thank you for having me, especially on a weekend. Great to see the kind of things that you do. It's important that when we reach out or we help, we volunteer our time and effort, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't know to the extent of the impact that it has, the ripple effects that it has. You might think that it's another video, it is just another podcast, but what happens is when you have those shared learnings and shared experiences, people who might have not thought of an option might suddenly get a totally different perspective, and that helps them in the job. So happy to be here, Subin and Aayushi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. To start with, for our listeners tuning in, can you tell us about what you do and something about yourself more in deep?
I call myself as a career strategist and not a coach because I don't do coaching per se. It's more of strategy. Close to 18 years of experience in the talent acquisition space, majorly tech. So I've hired for US, Canada, UK and India. Those are the regions that I specialize in. I've worked for Fortune 100 companies. I've worked as clients and I've worked on products as companies. I've worked for startups. In Canada for the last 6 years, I've been apart. I still consider myself as a new immigrant. And one of the things that I've done when I landed was, I think the first month after I got my job, I realized that there are so many like me. I had the advantage being in the industry to know how things worked here. I did, before landing here 6 months, I did research and I spoke to TA leaders to find out what I have to do specifically. That is why I was able to find a job within my field itself, or using my past experience, I was able to land a job here. I started something called Coffee with Sajid. Every Friday evening after office hours, I used to meet new immigrants, help them with simple things like help them with the resume, give them direction, and that during COVID and over the years, it has grown in the sense that I have started regular LinkedIn audio sessions where I have addressed challenges that people face. It's not only new immigrants, for even people who are 15, 20 years in Canada, they find that the whole recruitment or hiring landscape has changed, and I try to address those issues.
I think one of the key points you have mentioned, and from our previous broadcasts also, we have recognized that a good planning is needed before you come to Canada, and you should be very much aware of what you exactly want to do and network with the right kind of people.
Exactly. So before I came, the 6 months of research, what I did was I spoke with TA leaders in Canada. I didn't ask them for a job. I was asking them, okay, if I move to Canada, what should I do? What are the skills what do you think are the gaps that I might have, right? 80 to 90% of them told me that the first thing, Sajid, you need to do is get something what we call as a Canadian experience. And I didn't search for a job as soon as I landed. The first thing that I did was I searched for a volunteer job. So 2 weeks after I landed, volunteered for Plan International. For 2 months, I was working for that group. And what happened was 1 month after I put my Plan International experience is when I started getting interviewed. So that is it's a slight information, but when I got it from the HR leaders itself, I knew that I couldn't ignore it, and then that is how I started my journey. So those are there are small things. So understanding the process is very important, right? We think that we have all the skills. There are people who are students who are newcomers who are just figuring it out, but there are people even with 10-15 years of experience who land here and then they are stuck, or they find that there is a gap in what they know, how the market works and what actually happens in.
And what would be considered to be the motivation to become an expert in your recruitment or maybe become a career strategist after you landed here?
my passion for recruitment, so I did my MBA from PSG Institute of Management. I was like all those 18 years has been as a recruiter. So when you as a recruiter, what happens is you're constantly talking to people, right? The challenge is you cannot ensure that every person whom you interact with or talk to, you can't give them a job. But over a period of time, you realize that there are small mistakes. You might speak to great candidates. Recently, I spoke to a person who had close to 18 years of experience in the tech space, but he hadn't leveraged or used his network to showcase his skills on LinkedIn. He hadn't used LinkedIn enough. So my simple question was, what was stopping you from doing that, right? He was a subject matter expert. He was very good at articulating things. He was good at communicating, but he never thought it that you need not become a writer, but you could share your insights, right? You could leverage your network on LinkedIn, or it could be any other platform, not necessarily LinkedIn. But since we are looking at professional career, so LinkedIn is my go-to platform where I have leveraged over the years. So those kind of things is what I felt that people, when you look at career and the difference between a career and a job, right? So career is always a marathon. So you need to plan well in advance. You need to know what are the right kind of tools, where you want to be, how you're going to leverage it. If it is for a job, then okay, you have your resume, you keep applying, find out what are the best routes to get a job, keep applying, get those interviews and get a job, right? Career is totally different, right? In a career, you need to look at, okay, in the next 5 years, how are you going to be remembered as? So what is the growth that you need within your career, right? And all those discussions is where I thought that if I can talk on those topics and have a lot of people understand or build their career roadmap, right? That would help them in the long.
Coming to LinkedIn, were you using it in back home also, or
Yeah.
after you came to Canada, you started using it extensively?
No, I started using LinkedIn in 2006 while I was studying in PSG Institute of Management, and the computer lab is when I first started my account there, right? I've been leveraging it for the last many years as part of my profession, where I'm little old school, where I head and do a lot of research on competitors, find out who are the right kind of candidates for my roles. So that is why I have used LinkedIn. Over the last 2 to 3 years is where I have used it to leverage or help career as a career strategist, where I've used LinkedIn, and that is where I've been recognized as LinkedIn top voice, because I've started using LinkedIn not only for my work but also to share a lot of information.
And how did you get that? There should be a point, right, where you felt, okay, LinkedIn could be that platform where I could explore and help people. How did you find that niche maybe?
Yeah. So what happened was, I have always maintained this, that I cannot go beyond 3 platforms. So my go-to platforms were always LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. These were the 3 platforms. Because of my professional network, I had a larger following on LinkedIn, and it was easy for me to choose LinkedIn as a platform because I knew that there were larger audience. The only thing I had to be very careful was to maintain professionalism and to ensure that it is a topic that people wanted to hear a lot about. Right? Now, let's say I'm talking about a topic which I'm not an expert in, or let's say I'm talking in a topic that is on hype, like AI, right? Now, let's say AI, if I talk about AI, that is a topic which will go viral, but I'm not an expert on AI. Even though I've spoken on this particular topic on how AI is affecting recruitment and hiring, that is again very much linked to my expertise in terms of how we can leverage AI. So I've been very focused on using the topic that is relevant to what LinkedIn stands for. It's a professional network where people come together to share their ideas, and it is all career related, right? So that made it easier to choose LinkedIn.
Great insights. Over to Aayushi.
Subin, I would say, because we talked so much about LinkedIn, I would ask, why do you think LinkedIn is must for everyone, especially people living in Canada, from those perspective?
Okay, 2 aspects of that. One is everybody wants to become a subject matter expert in whatever you are doing, whichever field, whatever role. Even a student who's studying can become a subject matter expert in saying that, okay, this is what I'm learning, this is what I'm trying to do. You can become that, because if that person constantly tries to develop his or her expertise, he can become my expert, right? So one is to showcase what you're good at. You could be a student, you could be a 20-25-year-old veteran who has expertise in certain field, and you want to use a platform to showcase that expertise. That is one. The second big aspect is networking. LinkedIn is not only about job search, right? It's about networking. There are certain information or certain insights that you need to get in order to further your career. Simple example, you want to know what is a trend, what are the things that people are working on in terms of technology. Now, technology shifts, which used to happen every 5 to 6 years, is happening every 1 year right now, right? Shift in technology is happening. I'm not only talking about AI, but even in what companies are looking for, what are the new things that they're trying to implement. Now, how do you gain all this information, right? What happens is people who are professionals in their own domain, when they use LinkedIn as a platform to share those ideas, there are a lot of people who are absorbing this information. If you have the right kind of network, let's say you're connected with the right kind of people, and how the algorithm works is, and let's say you're commenting and posting and you're viewing a particular type of particular set of information. Well, how the algorithm works is the algorithm will start feeding you that kind of information. Let's say you are working in a specific industry, and that particular industry, you're constantly viewing content of that industry, you will get more and more insights or articles related to that, right? So in that sense, it is a must for any career professional to be on LinkedIn, active, to gain that. Now, let's say you're stuck in a role, you're stuck in a particular technology for more than a period of time, and you see that the industry is shifting. Let's say manufacturing industry. It takes a lot of time for manufacturing industry to move, right? People might not even make any changes in their skill set for 20 years, but it'll be fine. But in this current environment, that dynamic environment that we are in, it is shifting very soon, right? Even in manufacturing space or spaces, traditional spaces where the technology shift were not very fast. Nowadays, we're seeing a tremendous pace in technology shift.
Definitely agree with you. That is what also, because I come from HR background, we are also seeing people moving towards people analytics now. Instead of doing the core HR and then having been emphasized on the core HR side, it's been more focused towards HRIS side. So I totally align with that.
There's a lot of use of data in decision making now than before, right? One, because the access to data has increased, and also how you are analyzing the data has also shifted a lot during this, right? The tools that HR people have access. Now, this was one of the discussions that I had 2 years back. I was addressing close to around 400 odd HR professionals. So that was when AI came, and we were discussing how AI is going to change the recruitment space specifically. These were all recruitment specialists. In that discussion, we were saying that AI is one tool where the HR professionals have adopted as quickly as the tech professionals, right? Because typically what happens is HR people are the last people in the departments to implement any kind of technology. But when it came to AI, they were equally at par with the top tech people in adopting AI. So definitely, I completely agree with you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I also wanted to understand from someone who is just starting out, what's the one thing they should focus on making their LinkedIn profile stand out?
So, your resume is still the top priority, right? Now, your resume has to be perfect. When I say perfect, has to be really good, right? No resume is perfect. Your resume keeps evolving as and when changes in the industry happens, or as you keep applying, it needs to change, right?
Yeah.
But a resume without a LinkedIn profile is an area of concern. Now, let's say as a recruiter myself, right? If I find a profile and I don't see a LinkedIn link, right? The reason for that is because, one, there are a lot of fake applications. There are a lot of people who do give incomplete details in the resume, and recruiters will do a search to find out. They'll search your name, they'll search your current company, college that you work, and see whether you have a presence on LinkedIn, right? So LinkedIn is now part of your job application. Now, coming to your question regarding LinkedIn, there are set kind of things. Your profile picture has to be correct, your background. So we'll take the top portion of a LinkedIn profile, right? Your profile picture, it has to be professional. But let's say you're applying for a bank or an investment firm or a insurance company or a wealth management company where you're dealing with top tier clients, right? So it has to be professional enough for those kind of roles. Even if you're a tech person, your background space is real estate, right? It's advertising space. So what are you putting on background space? Are you putting just a picture? Now, if you put a picture of a flower or a picture of something that is not relevant to your profession, you're using valuable advertising space, because the moment anybody clicks your picture, they're going to see the background, right? So that is also very important. Now, I see Subin is wearing a Career LinkPod, right? That is a form of branding. right? Now, everyone who sees this video will link Subin with Career LinkPod. Right, so your background on LinkedIn is as such. Any word some people use industry specific keyword. They say that they are SaaS experts or they are cloud experts. They use logos of where some people use their company brand to say that way I've worked in Microsoft or Google. Some people put famous people's quote because that is something that they align with, but use that space, right? The other thing is content. About section, it has to highlight your achievements. What are you proud of? Most mistake that I see people doing is putting what is there in the resume, the similar content on a LinkedIn, right? When LinkedIn gives you a lot of space and a lot of flexibility, and also where you can change every week, you can change your about section. But I don't see people doing that. What is there in their professional summary in the resume, they copy and paste the same thing in the about section, right? Need not do that. So use LinkedIn as your 24/7 marketing, right? LinkedIn is promoting you 24/7 for anybody who is looking at professionals with your skill and caliber, and you just need to ensure that you have the right keywords and the right content in your LinkedIn profile, so that when people are doing the search, even when you're sleeping, your profile pops up in front of them. So that without application, it's called the pull and push method in marketing, where your resume, you have to push it to the hiring managers or recruiters. Whereas in case of LinkedIn, it is more of a pull method where you have your content attracting people towards you.
Right. I also, because you brought that point about a section where we don't, like, I am the one who always put that. Posting the professional summary, but I actually learned this from different networking event, that how you have to keep changing your even about sections and also your top headline. You should keep changing them so that LinkedIn understands that algorithm, and based on that, it will show your profile. But what else do you think, like, more mistakes we do on LinkedIn, which actually hurts the job perspective and it doesn't show our profile to the right recruiters?
Yeah. So LinkedIn allows you to add around 100 skills to your profile. Now, let's say you have 3 roles that you have worked in, whatever role, even if you're fresher and you worked in some place, there are 100 skills that you can add to your LinkedIn profile, right? We don't add all of them. So that is one thing. So let's say when you're applying on LinkedIn, since LinkedIn uses AI right now, it will tell you that for this job, let's say the recruiter or the company is looking at 10 skills, you have 7 skills that match it. It's looking at your LinkedIn profile and saying that you have those 7 skills of the 10 that the recruiter is looking for, right? So LinkedIn allows you to add 100 skills. What is stopping you from doing that? One is not knowing that you can add 100 skills. The second thing is, why would you need to put all those skills, right? Because then LinkedIn tells the recruiter that Subin has 7 skills, Aayushi has 8 skills, and Aayushi is much better suited for this particular job because she has 1 additional skill that Subin doesn't have. So LinkedIn algorithm itself is telling the recruiter this. So it makes it much more easier for the LinkedIn recruiter to understand what kind of profiles are better suited for this. So one thing that I see is people not adding enough skills. Second thing is recommendation. Now, to make your LinkedIn profile 100% complete, you need a minimum of 3 recommendations. So you need to get recommendations, and as a policy, I say you also need to recommend at least 3 others, because let's say I got 20 recommendations and I'm not given recommendation to anybody of my colleagues or any people I've interacted with, right? It looks as if I'm a very selfish person because I'm asking people for recommendations and people are recommending me. I'm happy to put them in my page, but then I'm not willing to give other people recommendations. So that is also not good. So you need to put those recommendations there. Any side projects, anything that you're passionate about, right? I do volunteer work. I put that in my LinkedIn page, right? The people that you think you need to follow, right? Let's say you're passionate about certain leaders and you like what they do. What happens when you follow is the content that is related to what they share will come into your feed, right? So you need to follow a couple of those leaders too. You also, another method of engagement is, one method is to create content. You create content regardless of your years of expertise. You create content, and regardless of whether you have 100 followers or 10,000 followers or 1 million followers, that content is recognized by LinkedIn because you're free on LinkedIn, and then that data is what LinkedIn makes use of, right? Whatever you put there. Alternative to that, because some people are reluctant to share content directly, an alternative to that is commenting. Now, let's say you're hosting an event you put that event on LinkedIn, and let's say some people comment on say, hey, this has been my experience in Vancouver regarding my job search. How do I better that? What happens is there is an engagement after that. Some people will read the comment, some others say, hey, you can try this, why not? That creates engagement, and that engagement ensures that more and more people participate in that discussion. So and it also shows an expertise that, let's say you are commenting regarding a particular problem, saying that, hey, why don't you try it in this method, right? Is that it is an opinion, but it is something that you're sharing because it's your personal opinion. Because Aayushi might have a different opinion being in the same space that I am in. Subin might have a totally different opinion being from where his technical background or expertise is. I might have a totally different opinion on the same topic, right? But when you share and comment on that, what happens is, one, the algorithm works in favor, but it also helps your own personal profile. So those are things that I think people miss out on.
Since we talked more about networking, so how can someone network on LinkedIn without being too pushy, or without having a templated version of ChatGPT and pasting it to a message group and saying that we want to connect and then asking for recommendation? So how do you think people should tackle those kind of situations?
So what you mentioned earlier is people about changing the about section and the tagline, right? It's called, in marketing, it's called A/B testing, right? A/B testing is where you, let's say you have 3 headlines, and then you test and see, you need to measure for that. Now today, let's say I'm getting 100 views. I change my headings, and then I see how those 100 has those views increase, decrease, and based on what is the best view, then I keep that headline to ensure that I get more views based on that, right? So A/B testing is something that we constantly have to do when you're trying to reach out to people, right? There are some simple fundamentals, right? Simple fundamentals is, when you meet a person new, you have to show interest in someone. Okay, if you're meeting someone in a train and you want to start a conversation, what is the first question that you would ask? Hey, where are you going? Right? You need to show interest in the other person to start a conversation. The biggest thing that I see people saying is, hi, they don't even mention hi Sajith. They say, hi, I'm looking for a job. This is my resume. This is what I get 70-75% of the time. I get a lot of messages, and it's impossible for me to message back on this. Now, if there is a specific message saying that, hi Sajithkumar, I have around 4 years of experience in this domain. I'm currently in Toronto. I see that you are a technical recruiter. Would you have roles matching my skill set, right? That makes it more promising for me to look at this person's profile and react, rather than just say, hi, this is my resume, do you have a job for me, right? So you need to be concerned about the person that you're trying to interact with, and see his profile at least, read his profile, understand what they do, right? Hey Aayushi, I see that you're in the HR space. Hey Subin, I see that you're in the tech space. I see that you're with Career LinkPod. Go to their website, understand what they do. Hey, I noticed that you guys are doing great work, right? I just wanted to know whether you have a marketing role in your company. That makes more sense than just saying that, hey Aayushi, can you get me a marketing job, right? So you need to be very clear when you're reaching out to people, because people don't have the time to sit and respond to every messages that come, right? One thing. It took me, I think, close to 8 years to now I have a standardized invitation that I send, because I've done so much of A/B testing to see, okay, which works, which doesn't work. And over the past many years, I've done it. Now my invitation is a standard invitation. I have one standard invitation, but it has taken me more than 7 years to reach that stage. The challenge before COVID I was getting around 93-94% acceptance rate for any invitation that I'm sending. During COVID, it reduced. Surprisingly, I thought people during COVID would be more open to accept invitation. Correct? It reduced. Right now, it is less than 60 to 75%. So there is a 40% of chance that even people whom I send a LinkedIn invitation will not accept, right? So accept the fact that 50% of the people will not accept your invitation. So how do you deal with that issue is, one, like I said, customize your invitation to make it meaningful. Second is, now let's say you have sent 10 invitations and you think that, okay, I sent 10 invitations, only 50% respond to me, I'm not going to do it. No, that is not how it works. So if your target for this month is, I need to connect with 10 people, or let's say 100 people you want to connect with, and you're saying that it's only 50% accept, then I need to send 200 invitations. Full logic in that, right? And also be careful as to whom you're sending this invitation to. What kind of network are you trying to build up? Very important. Strategy in networking is very important. Whom do you want to connect with, right? My biggest thing is people say that thing that, okay, if I get connected to recruiters, I'll get a job. Wrong strategy. The best people to connect with are people in your profession, similar kind of title and seniors. People in your domain, let's say you are in the oil and gas sector, connect with more and more people in the oil and gas sector. If you are in the banking sector, connect with more and more people in the banking sector. Because there is a connection, there is an area of interest that you can talk about. You can discuss those topics. So try to build a strategy when you're trying to network there. So that is something that I would do.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sajid. I also think when people send a request or follow other people on LinkedIn, I feel like there is a sense of being emotional. I think that part is where when they get hurt. People are not accepting my request.
No, we don't accept rejection. It's a human trait, right? Rejection is something that we can't deal with, right? One another strategy is, now let's say I know Subin, right? Now through this podcast, I have come to know Aayushi, right? So that is how networking works, right? People think randomly sending out to, so let's say I'm connected with Subin and there's someone in Subin's network that I want to be connected with, right?
Right, yeah.
My first thing is, hey Aayushi, I noticed that you're connected with Subin. I would like to connect with you. I had a query, and be very clear why you want to connect with, right? I had a query regarding this particular thing, would like to know your thoughts on that. That has a better chance for acceptance than just saying, hey, I want to connect with you. I'm looking for a job.
Thank you so much, Sajid, for sharing that. Any tips on creating content that gets noticed on the platform and it will help them in getting a job? Not like something, putting open to work banner and then looking for, most people do that. So what do you think extra step they should go and do?
The object of content is for people to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest way to have people discuss about, let's be platform specific. Now, if you want to be on Twitter and you want a conversation, if you're political, if you put a political post, people will start either liking it, hating it, or they will comment on it, right? You will get a traction on that. On LinkedIn specifically, what is your objective? What do you want to do? Now, if you want to promote a particular services or this thing, then it has to be very specific to what you want to promote. You want to promote a company, a services and this thing, then you have to do that in that particular way. As an individual, if you want to do, you have to imbibe the storytelling method. This is something that you have to do while you're attending interviews, right? You need to tell a story. Because let's face it, hiring managers are seeing similar kind of profiles, and especially in the last 2 years, hiring managers are saying they're getting the same resume looks lifeless because there's no story coming out of it. Everybody's talking about numbers, because you're using the same AI. When you use a tool to tell a story, what happens is you're using a framework. And what happens in the framework is all the frameworks are the same. The output becomes somewhat same. And when you've seen 100, 200 recruiters saying maybe 400, 500 resumes in a week, they see the same kind of story. And then what happens is that story becomes really boring. It's like how we watch the movie. If the movie has the same story to tell, what excites us to watch spend 2.5 hours, go to theater and you right now watch that in the confines of your home where you can switch it off, switch it on based on that. Grabbing a person's attention is very important, right? And when you're creating content for that, so how do you start is you start small. You do maybe once a month, talk about topics that you're passionate about and which you know about. Let's say you want to talk about simple thing. Coloring books. Now, this is something that I've been doing recently just to move my mind away to stay more focused is coloring books. I've bought a book and I'll start coloring those books. Simple thing. For everybody, you might think, why is that this person at this age trying to do coloring books, right? It helps me. It keeps me focused. When you're doing coloring books, you're only thinking about what are the right kind of color. And there is no right or wrong, right? You can choose any combination that you want. And that is the kind of productivity that you're trying to bring in. So if I talk about that and I link that to a job search, or let's say I say that if I'm using coloring books to remove stress in my job search, if that is a topic that I talk about, there'll be a lot of people who will be able to relate it. There'll be people who share their own with some may say, hey, I do walking, I do yoga, I do this. So you'll have people relate to that particular content. If I do a content only on coloring books on LinkedIn, I'm sure you'll have many people who are okay to talk about that. What is he talking? He's talking about coloring books, not related to anything of interest. Content, what kind of story that you're trying to tell is very important.
Right. I will say I also use coloring book. I don't know. It makes me feel more creative, and I've been doing that from past 1 year, and it makes me feel very creative and very productive after maybe the color effect.
It's more about as a child, what happens is when you're using coloring books, nobody can tell you that your parrot has to be green, because when you're children, you can your parrot can have any color. You can have multiple colors and any color. So that your right brain, left brain activity is what increases the product.
Thank you for sharing that. Over to you, Subin.
In terms of the LinkedIn, which we were discussing about the testing and all, one thing I have noticed, I don't know if it's fully correct, but in my profile, previously I used to use emojis in my headline, like HR, then a shake hand, and then a word. I noticed that I was not getting so much views or attention or the right kind of content on my LinkedIn. But I think last week or 2 weeks back, I changed it and I made it simple. And I started getting views and content started flowing into my post better.
It's true. 2020, what I did was I changed each of my letter into an image. So S would be an image rather than the alphabet, right? The objective was also not to get because a lot of people were reaching out to me, and it became really difficult. Contraction is if anybody sends me an email. So email is limited, right? You only have 15 emails. Any email that I get, I will respond even if it is a no, because then they get that email back. If I don't use or I don't respond to that email, they lose that email. They cannot reach out to another person, right? So the moment you respond, what happens is LinkedIn gives that email back to the person. So I respond to all the emails that I get. But I was flooded with so many emails. So what I did was I changed this character to image, and what happened was the number of people, because then people would not be able to search your name and will not reach out to your LinkedIn profile, right? So similar with what case, if you use any characters or special characters in your LinkedIn profile or content, it is non-searchable, right? So that is something.
Yeah, thank you. So what's the biggest change you have seen in terms of the resumes from the past, where employers used to look at something else and now they are looking at something else specific because the number of competition has increased, right?
Hiring managers are looking more at specific domain experience. I'll give you a simple example. I was talking to a recruiter and she was applying for a lot of roles, and there was a role in a healthcare space. She didn't have healthcare space experience. She had close to 10 years of experience in Canada. She didn't have healthcare space, right? She applied for the job. They started the conversation, but during the conversation itself, the second or third question was, do you have experience in healthcare? Because that was very specific recruitment for healthcare, right? She mentioned she didn't have. They stopped it. It was a half an hour discussion. They stopped it in 15 minutes because they wanted to know, even though it was not there in the resume, they wanted to know whether she had that specific experience, gave her a chance for the interview, but they didn't take the conversation forward, right? This is what is happening because there are enough candidates in the market with those specific. Now, let's say you're applying for a bank for any role. You have a lot of tech expertise, but if you don't have that specific banking experience, what the challenge is right now, hiring managers are not saying, okay, let's give this person an opportunity and let them pick it in 3 months or 6 months. That domain experience is also of huge value for hiring managers. So they're looking at more of a plug and play kind of skill set and combination where they require this soft skills, you have these hard skills, and along with that, this domain experience, if you have that, it's a better fit. And since there are n number of people or enough number of people in the market with those skill sets, they're willing to wait until they find the right candidate.
So we can put it like this. Previously, there were ample amount of candidates available. So previously there was a lack of candidates. So they were ready to train and accommodate them, but now we have a large
pool. The
number of
talent
people
pool has
applying
increased, and so hiring managers are deciding that they look until they find the candidate. That would be a better choice. If let's say they extended their job search to another 10-15 days, is much better than training to find the right candidate than training a person for 3 months and 6 months and not knowing whether that person will pick it up or not. Yeah.
For someone who is not getting any kind of calls or anything, even though they did the resume optimization, LinkedIn optimization, they use JobScan and such kind of applications, what would be one of your recommendations or any fixes what else they need to do within their resume, or how should they change their strategy?
I would say always it's a 30-30. My policy strategy is a 30-30-40 principle. 30% of job you need to continue applying for roles that are open, right? Of those roles that are open, very few are very active, in the sense there are not hot roles. They have already identified someone, or someone is in the process and they're just seeing how in the market whether there are enough number of people, right? So, but you need to keep applying for that. 30% of your time you need to spend on mock interviews and interview skills, right? The reason being, let's say you get the opportunity, at that point in time you can't have 4 or 5 interview rejects to understand that you're not interviewing well. Parallelly, you will have to improve on your interview skills. That is one. But 40% of your time has to, without any rejection, has to be networking. Because I've seen that more and more people, even with people with 10-15 years of experience in Canada, more and more people are getting references and or jobs only through referrals, right? That has been the case for quite some time. Now it's become very prominent. So if you ignore that 40% of the job of the strategy, and you concentrate only on the 30, or even you concentrate only on the 60% strategy, you're missing out. So that is where you need to put 40% of your effort.
Thank you.
I have a question on, since we talked about strategies, I would like to ask a question on what's the smartest way possible to approach job in today's market, especially with so much competition.
Now, let's say you see a job post on LinkedIn, you apply because you want to be the first, you apply. But the process doesn't stop there. You use a network to find out people who is working on this particular role, which recruiter. If it is a large organization, there are many recruiters, right? You don't know which recruiter is working on that particular job. So you need, if you know someone in that organization, or you have friends who have friends in the organization, find out who is a recruiter in that organization. You get their email ID and send them a mail with a cover letter saying that, hey, I noticed that you have this particular role in your organization. I have these kind of skill set, and I have this kind of domain experience. I think I might be a good match for your role. Happy to jump on a discussion, right? You need to do that additional kind of work that you need to do. You cannot rely only on one platform alone. You can't say that, okay, I'm active on LinkedIn, I'm spending 2 to 3 hours, that is the only platform that I'm going to get my job. Because not all jobs are posted on LinkedIn alone. You will have jobs on LinkedIn, on Indeed, on Monster, ZipRecruiter. There are multiple platforms. There are jobs by startups which they post only on those particular platforms. There's Y Combinator, there is Angel List, or now it's called, I think, Wellness, but specific platforms only for startup jobs. So you need to be in all those platforms nowadays, like how you and Subin mentioned, the competition is tough, so you can't restrict yourself to one particular platform.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sajith. And what advice you would like to give to someone who's applying everywhere and still not hearing back?
Get your resume reviewed. It could be a peer, it could be a recruiter, it could be a HR person. Why is, I find a lot of small mistakes that they could have easily avoided, and that could be hindering their process. Recently, an HR person sent a resume to me. There was a date overlap. In the sense, she put June 2024 to April 2024. This is in the experience that she mentioned. Being an HR person and being a person who looks at resumes, you can't make that kind of a mistake, right? It cannot be done. So you need to be the problem is the resumes keep changing every week or every 2 weeks. People keep changing the resume. It's very easy to miss out on those minute details. First thing is, get your resume reviewed for red flags. If there are red flags, you need to remove that. Second thing is, coming back to LinkedIn. Does the LinkedIn speak the same story as what you want to get into it from a resume perspective? Is that aligned, right? Let's say your LinkedIn is telling a different story and your resume is telling a different story. There is also a misalignment there, right? It is more of a luck also nowadays, where I never used to place so much of value in luck, because the time that when you apply, right? Now let's say you apply for a post on Friday, it gets dumped among a lot of resumes, even if it is in software, right? What happens is, it is below the pool. Monday, the recruiter comes in, maybe Monday mornings, meetings and all those things. Monday, second half is when the recruiter starts looking at the resume. Let's say Monday morning, there are around 50 people who have applied. Right? Now, what might happen is, the person who has applied on Friday, let's say the person is a great fit, but let's say the recruiter is reviewing them in batches, saying that, okay, these are the new resumes that have come in, and let me look at the first 50 candidates. And let's say the recruiter gets around 8 to 10 good candidates in the first bunch itself. right? The person who has applied on Friday sometimes might not even get a chance where the recruiter looks at his profile. So luck does play. And when you apply, all those kind of things also play a big matter in your job application.
And do you still think cover letter is still beneficial and useful in 2025? And should job seekers focus on other aspect of their application, like such as cover letter?
There are two views regarding cover letters. One is that hiring managers and recruiters don't read cover letters, right? But writing a cover letter has become very easy. In the sense, you know the domain experience, you know the job description. Making a cover letter is not difficult nowadays, right? You don't have to put too much of thought into that. I would say, why not? Why not have that additional job? Because in a resume, in a 2-page resume, you can't even put a 3-year experience in a 2-page resume. It's not possible. Let's say you have 10-15 years experience. How can you limit all your experience in a 2-page resume? A cover letter gives you that space to highlight your profile better. I would look at cover letter as your title song that you have in a movie, right? Now, let's say like Om Shanti Om, right? You remember, what do you remember of the movie, right? Of course, you remember Deepika, you remember Shah Rukh Khan, but you also remember the song, right? Why? Because that has been playing in your mind for quite some time, right? I would look at cover letter as that spicy bit of additional information that might, if it gets you the opportunity for an interview, why not put it there, right? You're missing out if you're not putting it.
Yeah, I echo that because I have worked with managers who need a cover letter. Though it's not an industry norm, but still they feel that that person has put an extra effort and it's more, they can just read that and find out how the candidate is. But do you think we should customize the cover letters also as per the resume every time?
I wouldn't say you need to customize the resume also every time, right? What are you going to put on the resume? How are you going to customize it based on the job description? I would say, let's say you use the resume, let's say you have an ATA score of 70. Don't change the resume so much that you yourself don't know what you have put in the resume, right? But you customize the cover letter as much as possible. So what happens is the customization has to be in the cover letter and not in the resume as much. So in the cover letter, you're saying that why you think that you're a perfect fit for this particular role, right? Use whatever jargon that you want, use whatever method that you want, but tell that story in the cover letter and help, like you said, help the hiring manager make the decision. Yes, because every hiring manager and recruiter is looking to say no to every application because they want to eliminate which don't fit, not only find which fit, right? So what happens in the process, give the hiring manager the opportunity to say yes and customize your cover letter to any exam, because the cover letter has to speak specific to that particular role and that company.
To you, Subin?
Thanks. As a recruiter, what is that one trait or quality you remember about a candidate? So for example, if you had interviewed a candidate but you were not able to select that person, but then for the next opportunity remember that person, what's that quality or a trait which you
Most recruiters will, whenever they have a conversation with a candidate or even hiring managers, I know hiring managers who write notes regarding an interview process. They take printouts or against that particular profile, they'll write notes, hey, this candidate did well, right? So even if you're not, I call them as the gold medalist, silver medalist and the bronze medalist. Okay, the gold medalist gets the offer. Sometimes he might take the offer, sometimes he might reject the offer. Now, the silver medalist and the bronze medalist are also equally good. Maybe if it is a sprint, just of seconds, milliseconds, they might have lost that opportunity. As small as maybe that hiring manager, one of the hiring manager liked this candidate more. It could be n number. We all have biases. But what the hiring manager or the recruiter remembers is the conversations that these people had. How did they leave that? Now, if you rejected a candidate, how did they take it? Did they send a thank you mail? Did they send that, okay, if there are any other opportunities later, I liked the way that you conducted the interview, I liked your company, I liked it. Did they send a thank you note saying that, thank you for taking time to interview me, I know it didn't work out, but I hope that our paths meet again. That simple thank you mail is going to leave an impression in the hiring manager, is going to leave an impression on the recruiter. 2023, I had a role. Before even starting the job search, the first thing that I did, I looked at who are the people who had applied for, we had a similar position earlier. So I looked at who are the people who had applied for this position earlier. The person who was the silver medalist, right? I sent a mail to silver medalist, the bronze medalist, and also a couple of people who had applied for the same role, right? The silver medalist responded back saying that, hey, I'm still interested, I'm still looking for a job, and I had a great interview for that. I put this candidate for this same position, new role, I put this candidate. The position got closed in 14 days. Because this person was already interviewed, they liked him also for another role, and the company, the hiring manager, decided to go ahead with it. Sometimes, let's say you got a rejection mail. After 2 weeks in Canada, 2 weeks is the time frame that for a person to join. After 2 weeks, on the third week, if you send a mail to the recruiter, because you don't know whether this person has joined or not. I would have taken the offer and I would have not joined. What if I'm not joined and that position is still vacant and the recruiter is starting a new job search? But at that point in time, you have reached out to the recruiter saying that I am still actively looking. Don't you think that the recruiter will put you back in the process? Small things.
What do you think the candidates have a myth? What's the myth that the candidates have about a recruiter?
The biggest myth is the recruiter's job is to find them a job. The recruiter's job is to work with the business. The recruiter's job is not to find a candidate outside the organization a job. That is not a recruiter's job. We are even though we are part of HR, we are actually part of the sales and marketing team, because we are promoting the company, we are promoting the services of the company, we are trying to build a brand for the company too, right? So the recruiter is trying to get the best team so that the product and services that the company provides becomes better. We are a cost function. But the general public always thinks that since I send a application to the recruiter, it is a recruiter's job to find me a job. That is the biggest one.
Yeah. In terms of job search, if someone is having more than 12 years of experience, who has just landed and they don't have any Canadian experience, how can they navigate their career here? Because they might not be getting any calls. Everything is standstill for them, but they have a lot of experience into a profession. How can they navigate the career?
Start speaking to at least 3 to 5 people who landed recently, who have the similar kind of experience and who got a job. Let's say you speak to 5 people, you'll get 5 different scenarios, 5 different versions of how they got the job. I got the job because I did volunteer work. Some other people might have got a job because they approached their previous company. There are different ways that people have done it. Right? There might be ways that you have never thought about just by speaking to people. And that is what happened in conversation. What is conversation, right? When people share, right? What happens in those conversations is you get a lot of ideas. We have all been in these kind of conversations where with friends, we have talked about cricket, we have talked about movies, we have talked about what angle a person hits a ball, right? How does it affect us? It doesn't help us, right? But we talk about it. But in that conversation, what happens is people who have not realized or not thought about that, in that it opens our mind. It opens new venues for us to discuss. That is what happened in conversations. The more you have conversations with the right kind of people, you would find that, and there's always a lot of noise also. In the sense, even if you look at LinkedIn as a platform, there's a lot of noise saying that do this, do that, do this, do that, right? But what is the specific strategy that you need to adopt? It can be very specific to your domain. It could be very specific to your skill set. So you need to speak to the right kind of relevant people and find out how they succeeded. And also people who are still struggling will help you understand what not to do. Let's say you know that there is a big hole on the way to your office and you know that well in advance you will avoid that route, right? It's very important, because what if you realize that pitfalls after 6 months, 1 year into the job search? Wouldn't it be better that you realize that in maybe after you land the first week or first month itself, you know, okay, these are some pitfalls that are there in the job search, right? How do I avoid those? Yeah, that is something that you'll do.
Yeah, I agree, Bill. In terms of personal view, when we started these podcasts with people, experts like you, the kind of knowledge we gain through these conversations is really very high. And then we try to implement in our lives. And as I said, I'm changing my LinkedIn and stuff. These kind of things as a professional also we are trying to implement in our lives.
That is one of the reasons that I attend a lot of these sessions on LinkedIn too, is because when I have only my perspective, it can be very limited. I also attend a lot of these sessions with experts, right? Because when I say expert, right, it need not be that you need to have 20 years of experience to be an expert. There are people who do podcasts who are just 1 or 2 years, but amazing talent. I recently spoke to a 13-year-old kid in Kerala who is doing he's hosting AI courses for people in US. Not kids. He's talking to professionals in US. He's from India. He's doing coaching classes and he's doing it. So I was talking to him and I saw a news article. I reached out in LinkedIn and this is how I introduced myself. Hey, I don't claim to be an expert in LinkedIn, but I know some things about LinkedIn, being in the platform. I see that your platform needs, your LinkedIn page needs a lot of improvement. This is how I approach it. He immediately responded to it. He said, I'm not spending a lot of time on LinkedIn, but in YouTube, he has, I think, over 80K or 90K followers, right? And he's generating revenue while he's studying. And the core topic that he's touching upon is AI. So you learn a lot from people whom you interact, right? Regardless of which domain, so have more of those conversations. I still do it. Last week I went for a job networking event. So I still do that. When I landed here, I used to do it very often. Like Aayushi was telling, we had every Thursdays or Friday evenings. I used to attend in downtown Toronto. We used to attend all those networking events, right? The objective is just to meet new people and get a lot of information.
Going forward, what are some of the realities which job seekers often overlook about their job search in Canada?
Very, very important, regardless of which domain you are in. If you don't know that in next 2 years, what is the skill requirement you need, because nobody is going to come and tell you. Your boss might not even tell you. What if your boss is looking for a job change somewhere else, right? Is he going to be so much invested in your career to tell you need to upskill in these kind of domain? Whom does the onus lies in? Is it with the individual or is it with the company? Right now, it is with the individual. It is my duty as a professional to upgrade myself on AI tools, because that is how much the AI tools are impacting in my specific function. If I do not upgrade myself, nobody is going to come and tell you, hey Sajith, why aren't you AI savvy? So upskilling is one thing that people take very lightly. So LinkedIn Learning has gained popularity over the last few years. 2020 June, they added AI search into the LinkedIn search. So LinkedIn Recruiter, the platform that recruiters use, it uses AI now. The search algorithm uses AI. So complex Boolean searches is now being done using AI. One feature that will add value to your profile is your LinkedIn Learning points.
Okay.
So A has all the skills, B has all the skills, similar skills. Let's say A and B have similar experience, similar skills, even similar company work, similar projects that they've worked. If A has LinkedIn Learning added, which is relevant to his profile, or that A's profile will come in the search better than B who doesn't have LinkedIn.
That's a good point. I wasn't aware of that. One question I had was, recently there's a lot of companies using video sessions for interviews. So the first round is not with a recruiter, but it's a video session. And basically I feel that has a lot of ups and downs, because where you can't read a person's face expressions or body expressions, and then you might not know where to stop and how much to say. So how do you think a person can go through that process very much smoothly?
I still have a discussion. This is even better, where I can speak to Subin and Aayushi. I see your face and this is okay, right? If I'm doing a recording where I'm looking at the camera and the laptop and doing a recording, I still fumble. Okay, I still do that. LinkedIn audio, they stopped in December. I haven't started my LinkedIn video sessions or LinkedIn sessions. I haven't restarted it yet because I have a discomfort in talking. So if you ask me personally, I know that I would do bad in a video interview. Right? The only way to improve this is use your phone, record what you're talking. Let's say, do a mock interview on the phone, record it, replay that, and how you react, how do you emote, how do you pause, how do you look good in a video. Look at that, see whether you can improve on that. It's not an easy process. There's a learning curve for that, but I've seen people do it better. The most important thing is remove that shyness. How I will look, or how I will be presenting myself in front of a video, right? Because it's recorded, and like you said, you don't know when to pause and all those mannerisms that we have, right? So record it and then play back, and then I know that I play horribly back when I see myself in the video. So so that is something that I know. But we'll get there eventually. But this is going to be the future. People are going to do that, right? One challenge that I have with that particular mode is, how are people are they going to see? If it is a 30-minute video, I can understand. If it is 45 to 1 hour video, it can be really boring to watch and then understand if that person is really good at it. The person might be really great at the job. He might have all the skill set, but a video takes everything out of that.
Yeah, it's an evolving technology right now. Many companies are using it, right? Let's see how it goes.
My biggest challenge than a video is the AI response filtration process, where if you have seen nowadays, they will ask you certain questions. The questions get evolved. If it is a standard set of questions and then the same questions are asked to everybody, then it becomes easy to filter. But what if AI is using questions based on the responses that you're giving? If the questions keep changing, how do you evaluate ABC based on different sets of questions? And is AI actually good enough to understand whether ABC match the role, right? That is my challenge nowadays, right? AI is evolving, right? But as far as you know, it hasn't evolved to a stage where it can make that kind of inference just because of the conversation, right? Because when we have a conversation, right, we are not only looking at what you speak, right? We have over the years gained a lot of insights to mannerism, to people whom we interacted, and we are using all that knowledge, right? Is AI using all that knowledge? So that is my biggest challenge that I have in the recruitment space.
Yeah, thank you for the insights. Over to Aayushi.
Thank you, Sajith. Thank you, Subin. Thank you, Sajith. I just have last question for you, Sajith, and that is for someone who's feeling stuck or overwhelmed. What is that one piece of advice you would leave them with?
One thing that I would say is always remember that every individual, I look at people with talent, right? Everyone has talent, right? The moment you start to self-doubt yourself, right? Because you think that I'm applying to 100 places, why isn't my resume getting shortlisted? Or I'm attending so many interviews, why am I? The question that people get is, am I not good enough? Once that creeps in, whatever you do from a strategy, whatever you do from LinkedIn resume and this thing is not going to help you out, right? Simple examples. I've seen people do a job search for 10 months. I have a session with them, half an hour, maybe sometimes half an hour. I wouldn't have changed anything in the resume. I wouldn't have changed anything in the LinkedIn, right? I would have just given them the hope that they are good enough, that they have the capabilities. That is the only thing in my conversation that I would have with them. 2 weeks later, they would have come and told me, hey Sajith, you know what? I got an interview and I cleared the interview. Most of them might have not got the offer. But the very fact that after 10 months of the job search and not getting anything, where they have someone tell them that they're good enough, has changed their attitude or their mentality to the job search is something that so I would say find people who can lift you up. I forgot the singer of that, Lift Kara De, right? There was so in that song, yeah. So that always, whenever I have the session, that song always keeps running in my mind, right? You just need someone to lift you up. Emotionally, mentally, just someone to say that you're good enough. If the people realize that they're good enough, it's just because of the situation or the scenario that they're in, they can overcome most of the things that they're having challenges. People
especially feel challenged when there are two friends applying for the same job and one gets the job and then they post on LinkedIn.
That is a problem, right? You are thinking you're not good enough because your friend has got a job, right? That comparison is, people compare. I've seen, hey, that person has lesser skills than me, but he got a job. You don't know the struggle, and that's a breaking point, right? You're deciding or evaluating your skill set when you're comparing it with others. Never do that. Every individual journey is an individual journey, right? Be it a job search or a career journey also, it's an individual journey and career journey, right? Only you as an individual know how much of effort and how much of pain that you have. You can't, nobody, even as a person who speaks to a lot of these people, I don't walk in their shoes, right? So I cannot say that, hey, do this. I can give people options. I can say that, try this strategy, try that strategy, try this. I can never put myself even in your both shoes. I can't put myself in your shoes because both of you have different journeys, right?
Person aligned with you. And so where do you see the job market heading in the next 5 years, especially with tech and AI shaking things up?
That's a very difficult. If I had that crystal ball, right, I would become a multimillionaire relaxing in some warm place. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you the challenge for that. Let's look at where job search and things will change in Canada alone, right? In the next 1 year. That would be a reasonable thing. There are a lot of political things that are happening, changing the US market, Canada relations, a lot of things it's very dynamic and fluid. What I see is we might not achieve the 2024 level of hiring. There will be a pause. We will not achieve the 2024 level of hiring because there will be pause breaks in certain industries. There will be challenges in certain industries. So we will not see that in 2025. From an individual who is job searching, you need to put in that extra effort. If And also you need to pivot. If things what you have done in 2024 didn't work out, don't expect them to work out in 2025. Because if you're doing everything that has to be done and still not getting things, you need to change. You need to do an additional course, you need to upskill, you need to reach out to more people, you need to understand from people how people are doing differently. What worked for others might not always work for you. So you need to figure what works for you. But speaking to those people will help you realize what is the competition doing, right? You look at every friend and job seeker as your competition and you understand how they're doing it different.
Thank you so much, Sajid, for sharing all of your insights. Subin, do you have anything to add?
No, I just want to thank you because this conversation can keep on going. That's what I feel.
I've been doing that for the last 5-6 years now, where the conversation never ends because it's dynamic, right? One thing I would say that the job market will change. Will change. Earlier, what happened is the job market used to change every 4 years, 5 years. So we had 8-year cycles, then we had 5-year cycles, now every year. So 2025, what we are discussing and why this conversation need to happen and the relevance of this conversation will increase is because of this. Every year, this conversation is going to change, or the impact of the conversation is going to change, because 2025 is going to be different. 2026 is going to be totally different. So more of these conversations will happen, because then only people will realize how things are changing. Because if I use a 2024 strategy in 2025, it's not going to work. So hoping that you both have these kind of more conversations, hoping that you bring in more experts from various industries. What will happen is, as more and more of your audience see these kinds of events, they will get a better understanding of how things work. So all the best to you both.
Thank you so much, Sajid. Thank you for sharing all of your insights, and it was really great conversation. Learned a lot today, especially about LinkedIn and how it works and about the algorithm. So thank you for sharing all of your insights today.
Take care. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.